Since the Class 1 is coming up, I included a slide with a couple exceptions. If I was a manufacturer of Class 1, I'd first go to the FDA product code database and check my particular FDA product code to see if there's a good manufacturing practice exemption. If that's the case, I have no UDI requirements for that particular device. So there's roughly, last time I checked, somewhere around 20% of those product codes do have a GMP exemption. So that's something that worthwhile to check out. So that might relieve you of some of the burden. If my particular device did not have that exception, then you should be aware that all Class 1 devices do not need to have the production identifier. So that's the second portion of that UDI. And if I were to have a Class 1 in the retail business, I may have been using UPC. The good news there is that UPC does qualify to serve as the UDI on the label. And there's no direct marking required for that particular Class 1 retail device with UPC. You do need to report the device identifier and a number of attributes, standard set of attributes, to the FDA for those devices. So there's a couple exceptions that you ought to be aware of. This is a list of data fields. The good news is we're not going to talk about every one of those in this session, but various categories there. We have found that it is a little bit of a challenge collecting these, and no historical record is currently available that has all these easily available in nice, concise location. You'll find these in various systems, and it does take a little bit of effort to collect them, make sure there's owners, make sure they're updated and kept current. Total of 64 attributes that are made available to the public. We won't go through every one of these lessons learned, but I'll just highlight two there at the bottom. We have found that some of the hiccups and anomalies that come through are getting the FDA listing number for your actual device. Sometimes it's a little hard to find, and you might have an invalid listing number. And the other code, the Global Medical Device Nomenclature Code, keep a close eye on that. That particular terminology does change over the course of time. It's dynamic. Some codes that you might have had in years past may have now been deprecated and no longer available, and they're replaced by some more granular codes. So many times a submitted code that you it goes into play, and the FDA would reject it because it's no longer active. Some additional lessons learned here on data. These particular three are in a group. Basically, the fields were turned as optional by the FDA. I believe now they would have thought about that and would have preferred to refer to those as conditional, but many submitters took that as a opening to not submit any data, and a lot of these fields were empty. The FDA does ask that these fields be filled in and submitted. You can update previously submitted values in records that may be empty, and you are able to fill those in with additional information. But the feedback from the users of this data was such that they do want this information, the device description and catalog number and so on, and many times it was left off. Good quality records, if you're going through Class 1, make sure you concentrate on these fields, and that way you don't have to go back and revisit them and do some cleanup.